Islam family, peace and love. I plan on going fully in on this topic today, trying to exhaust it down and bring some clarity in the way that not too many people are. So when it comes to proclaiming, declaring your nationality, nationalizing or status correction, um, I want to show that we speak in the same language. We talking about the same thing with all of these, and there are different methods of going about it. But before I get into that, I want to go into some definitions first. So it'll be really clear because I don't like going into beginner lessons unless I'm going to really go in and teach it and break it all the way down. So, first off, with the definitions, a lot of these do come from the Black's Law definitions, but you can also um, find some of these definitions in other genres of law and law dictionaries, maybe Bouvier's financial dictionaries. You can look up on online law dictionaries, and you may be able to find some of these same definitions or real similar to these. So I kind of cherry picked the ones that were more particular to the subject matter at hand. So it would be real clarity when presented. So I'm gonna start off with declare and proclaim, and show pretty much that they are the same thing. So declare is to make known or to publish, but also to act. So to declare your nationality would be to make it known, you know, to publish it, and then also to act on it, so to continuously use it. And That's just, you could say, in line with common law. You know, going along that route. No matter what method you go about of publishing or making known, in form of record or things of that sort. Um, to proclaim is to announce officially and publicly, and also declare. So proclaiming, not only officially but is publicly, which does kind of allude that it's not private when you proclaim something. So um, definitely there's ways of doing things that are public and private, um, but there's things that are public because they're easily accessible, public in that nature, and then there are things that are on the public record, but still considered private. And when it comes down to it, some things can even be redacted off the record, um, and only found by specific people. Basically, a safety level or clearance to seeing the document, and that goes into things like maybe a restraining order or something along them lines. Like that. That's just an example outside of what we're dealing with today, of a record that could be in the public domain. You say, because it's on a court record, but even if the records are accessible in the public, as far as making it known that there is a record, it's still being private. And things involved in family law in general are considered private, which changing your name is one thing that is considered private, but um, when you do it through the courts, it's still on public record. So that would be more um, proclaiming publicly, um, but just changing your name alone is not proclaiming your nationality, and I'm gonna get into that in a little bit. But um, I want to get a little bit further into what it is we're going into, because we got a few more definitions to get into. Um, Nationality. Um, so um, when it comes to nationality in general, um, I'm dealing with Moors right now, talking to Moors, but this is just the general definition of nationality overall. But I'm gonna tie it into us. So it's the quality of character arising from a person's, which, if you've been watching me long enough, you should know both definitions of persons, or if you've been in the movement and into the information long enough, you should know that. But it's the quality or character arising from the person's belonging to a state or nation. Um, I'm gonna have to do a whole video on exactly what a state is, or a nation, but just say that a trust, a private trust can be considered a state. Um, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to do a whole video on just that topic alone to break that one down. But that's a really good one that everybody needs to see. I'm gonna see how soon I can get that in the works for people. Um, but let me keep going. It determines the political status, which I'm gonna go into the definition of that, of the individual, especially in reference to allegiance, while domicile determines his civil status. Um, Nationality arrives from birth or naturalization. Um, but I am going to go into civil status and show how that does entail nationality in a certain extent. It's not as deep, but the political status. Um, when you look into the law dictionary, political status together is not there, but you can break up the words individually, and you get a good glimpse of what's going on. So, political, pertaining or relating to the administration of government, state, or nation, which, as I said, one of the definitions of state can be a trust. So that will go into the administration, or you could say a trustee. But also government as well, uh, which we are part and parcel of government and should be running good government. And anyone um, who is operating out of a body politic, um, as far as administration or trusteeship or things of that sort, that would be political, pertaining to government or nation, um, and especially dealing with the Moors or sheiks of certain temples. And I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. But status, the condition of a person. It also means a state, which you should look up a state. Um, but I'm gonna get into it, and it it signifies the circumstances in which the owner stands in regards to his property. So, um, when dealing with property, your own personal property, um, the condition of persons, that we should know that there's corporate persons versus the natural persons. As I was talking about that, there's different type of persons, and the straw man is that person. That's one of them persons you got to get to know, and be in the right regard, which is ownership. In regards to the property, who's listed as the owner when it comes to that property. Um, that makes a big difference. So dealing with the administration of, let's say, your government, and then in regards to your property. So in regards to your government or your state, your trust, and your property, your straw man, and other properties of such sort, um, is what political status is, and that's dealing in nationality. Determines the political status of the individual, especially in reference with allegiance. What allegiance um, is your straw man? Is it tied to the state directly without any encumbrance? Would be my best question to ask anyone who has anything to say about that there. But yeah, I do want to keep going. Um, a few more definitions before we really get into how to proclaim your nationality or declare your nationality and all of this here. Civil, pertaining to a member of civitas or a free political community. So, a free political community, or you could say a religious society. Islam, um, natural or proper to a citizen or a national. So, that's dealing in civil. So, civil status would go into all of that there. So, that would deal in nationality in a certain extent. But in dealing with your own government, which is why we would be nationals and not citizens, especially not in the sense of U.S. citizen with the small c as it's written there. Could have a whole nother class on that one alone. Um, but I want to keep going. The state, all of the assets and property owned by a person when that person dies. Um, the thing is, the person we're dealing with is a civilly dead person. The straw man. That straw man, which is civilly dead, um, property can own property. So it would take a natural person to be able to be the authorized representative, the owner um, of, of that estate, or the registered owner, the person that's in appropriate persona. We're gonna get into that real soon. I'm gonna be breaking that down with everything and all of this here included, probably. Just because definitions are, you know, definitely pertinent to getting the full understanding of what's going on. So, I did include person in here, for anyone, not familiar. Um, a human, corporation, I shorten it up, organization, partnership, association, or other entity deemed or constructed to be governed by a particular law. So, um, that straw man, that birth certificate, um, is not a human, but you could say it's an entity. So you would have to, let's say, go into a form or do some sort of correction um, with that document to reconstrue the laws as governed by, in particular, Islam. So um, these next couple ones are the most interesting. That it took me a while to find these definitions and get them in like this, but it's gonna be real pertinent when it goes into the forms of status correction. Um, because anything could be proper as long as you follow proper steps in law. As a Moor, there's nothing we can't do as long as we follow steps to not be encumbered. So um, I really wanted to pound these in. Public, any agency, interest, or property or activity which is under the authority of the government. Um, so agency, interest, or property. So meaning that straw man, which is property, initially under the authority of the government, it's a public document. Now, interest. That's the that's another factor I hadn't considered when I made this one here. I probably would have put them definitions in too. But I already have a couple of videos going into the topic of full faith and credit. Um, that is the interest that we get into the property, um, or into the straw man, um, which again is a public document. You know, bond and all those things that people talk about. I'm not gonna get into that, deep right now, but I can. Don't worry, it's in my paperwork. I know what's going on. But this next definition or portion of the definition of public um, is real important to put in there, showing not only just government, but it is capitalized in shares of stocks that can be traded on the open market. And I talk about that definition in particular um, when it comes to discharge, because when you're dealing with um, people who can negotiate instruments and things of that sort, it has to be someone that can can trade on that open market. Um, and if they're not in that capacity, um, you may be out of line. Trying to issue them a private instrument. You're probably out of line. You might want to stop that. Do a little bit more research. You can check out a video I have discharging debt versus paying bills on that one there. But now private, going into that. Um, Also, not holding any public office or public position, belonging to a particular person, uh, opposed to public or the government. So showing outside of the government and things of that sort, but also capitalized by shares of stock not traded on an open market. So these particular shares that are not traded on an open market, this could be something more considered like trust certificates. So something that only someone dealing in a private dealing with the trustee or a beneficiary would even have access to. Not there's no open market dealing with it, even though it does have value. Things that along that line. So that would get into us having our own trust, our um, temple or collective tribal trust, however we want to operate. I know that there's different people taking different methods, and I don't knock anyone. I try and be the one that is unbiased and can tell you how to operate from either side, which is why we finna really get into this next one, which is the public and private. um, and this is the first step when it comes to what we say proclaiming, declaring your nationality, nationalizing, status correction. Um, it would basically be um, a couple elements um, that go into this, and from there, there's remedy in the public or the private, which is why I really stopped. And there's the personal and collective remedy as well. I have a video on that. Um, so um, it would be basically first off, um, changing your name, which I was saying. You could do that, but not necessarily change your status. So it would also be a declaration or a proclamation of nationality and status as well. Um, that has to go along with a name change, whether you're doing it in a public fashion or a private fashion. Uh, those two go together um, as far as the very first step. Um, Now, the method you go about these, that is one of the biggest issues and um, reasons for the schism in the movement, you could say, because um, almost everyone has their own opinion of what we should be doing. And um, when I really looked into the situation, I checked it out and saw remedy on both sides and saw, um, you know, looking at it through my Pisces eyes that, if you see it to the end, uh, going either method, the public or private route, um, it would take everyone. Unity would be the key, but we would get to the same result um, that we're looking for, just in a different manner. But either way would work. Um, and I'm not going to get totally into that today. That's too long for what we got going on here. But I do want to get into first off, the court order name change. That's the first step in the public, proclaiming or declaring your nationality. Um, or the first step in status correction or nationalizing, you could say. Um, and this will be across the board. What I was saying, changing your name and also proclaiming your nationality with it. And I put on here without the U.S. Um, but technically, like I said, if we all decided that we wanted to be U.S. citizens, it would be like Neo going into the Matrix. At the end, it would destroy the system. We would still get the same end result, as opposed to um, what the private end game would be for enough of us to drop off the map and have our own allodial land that grew to the point where basically we just pushed them off the land anyway, which would be the end result, us, you know, regaining what is ours, and only dealing with ones who, would be willing to act in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So, on the private side, um, I'm being generous with this definition and saying any, but any common law proclamation filed in court, published in a newspaper, um, or beneficiary of a religious society slash trust that has a foreign status in relation to the U.S. but not America. Um, that was a whole lot in it, so I'm gonna break that down a little bit more. Go slower with it, but basically anyone who has a common law proclamation, um, affidavit of nationality, things of that sort, and you filed it um, in a court, where it's recorded, file stamped. You can get a certified copy, or published in a newspaper. Where you can get a certified copy. Ran, a couple weeks. I can't quite remember how many they say do. I have a more out here that I know that's done it personally. Matter of fact, I know two now that have done that process. I didn't run mine through a newspaper, but I do have it filed in the court where it's file stamped, can get copies and things of that sort of several different things with my nationality. So that's not an issue. Um, So um, that alone, you know, um, getting it on the record, you know, which even though it is on the private side, and I'm saying put it on the court record, it will fall under that family law side of things that I was talking about, where it's private by nature, even though it's on public record. Um, so it qualifies as private because technically you could say court order name change falls under the private side too, but the difference um, in operation why that one is labeled public is because not only is it filed in the court, um, but it's authorized by the government, which was in the definition um, of public. Yeah, any agency, interest, activity under which authority of the government, which um, the court order name change, it does get a judge's seal and signature, which is public, dealing with the government, as opposed to um, your private declaration, name change, correction, um, status papers, freedom papers. People call it all kind of stuff, and um, I'm not gonna not recognize any of these people, as Moors because if they are people, they definitely are Moors, and if they accept our beliefs and live under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, they are indeed our people. It's just some people haven't took it as many steps and done as much due diligence um, when it comes to law to get everything. Um, I'll say to dot all their I's and cross all their T's, but if you've got it on the record, um, with the right intent in your heart, it still stands in law, for the most part, and if it came down to it in court, you could definitely make it work. And I've seen people that didn't know nothing or nothing, but got a little something on the record, and were coached into being able to say a thing here, there, in front of a judge for themselves and be able to stand there square, to a minor extent, and come out with success, more than um, what would happen if they was to go in as a straw man and get railroaded, you know. And we want to get to the point where we're not even having to go into their systems, or if we do, it's flying through it because we've got our stuff in order, So when dealing with these foreign occupiers, sometimes you can't beat the ride, but you can beat the case, So that's what we do, and keep it pushing. So going further into to this private definition, um, beneficiary of religious society or trust that has a foreign status in relation to the U.S. but not America. Um, so that can be a temple, or that could be your tribal society or things of that is going through the proper filing measures or things of that sort to be foreign in relation to the United States, the corporation side, that person, but not America, not to the landmass. Um, that that would put you in a private status as opposed to public. Um, now, back to the other definitions in public. Let's go on and knock that out, and we almost out of here, so I don't want to keep you out too long. People's attention spans are short, but a member or sheik of a religious society or trust that is incorporated, temple that's incorporated, That's public, or under authority of any state that is not filed as 805 Illinois 115. Y'all can look that up and go into that one there. Or equivalent home rule body politic, and that would be in their state of operation, if not in Illinois. Um, Definitely gonna have to do a whole maybe series of videos, going into that and the Religious Corporation Act and things of that sort, and breaking down what the prophet did when he set up the temple, um, showing how it's equivalent to what a home rule body politics is or a municipal city, giving the temple that jurisdiction, um, but on a federal level, which is similar to what DC or the Vatican is, but on a higher status in this land. Um, so if you're dealing with a temple that's not set up in that way, which that would make it private, because it would be not in relation to the United States, but part and parcel. Um, it still be American. That's the part and parcel. But any other temples, are public, which is they're dealing with the government. They're filed with the state. Um, the government has interest um, in the organization, the property, or activity under which, or under the you're dealing that under the authority of the government. It's just no way of getting around that. And then any sheik or trustee or sheik of a body politic. So even um, let's say you are on in a private temple or organization. Any trustee or sheik of a body politic, which would be a government, um, that person is public. You have to realize that because you're a representative, a trustee, and trustees have to be held accountable by the people. So um, that's essentially what happens, in all government situations. Um, just by um, the nature of what's going on. Um, you know, the people elect government in general. In Republican form of government and even democracy. The non feudal style governments, you could say. Um, so yeah, they would be public officials, um, but the people would be private, or not holding any official public position, belonging particular persons opposed belonging to a particular person or persons opposed to the government. Back into that definition. That's why I put that in there. But also, like I was saying, a beneficiary on the other side, on the private side, um, of a private trust or temple, that would be the capitalized by shares of stocks, but not traded on the open market, even though they wouldn't necessarily, or they don't necessarily have to be stocks. Um, so if we want to just go into the first um, step, you could say, on either side, public or private, before going any further, um, you know, that would be it. That would be the breaking down the public and private side of what proclaiming and declaring your nationality is. And then nationalizing, status correction, like I say, speaking the same language. it would be the same thing. It'd be the first step, what your process is. Now, in dealing with status, status is relation to your property. Um, Remember, so your first property is that chattel property that's been misconstrued. So the next step, and I'm not gonna go any further into what the steps would be after the first step after this, but because it would break off into um, branches, it would look like the roots of a tree going down in many different directions, depending on how you're trying to operate um, in the public or in the private. Um, because there's lots of things that can be done on both sides. The public is people that are trying to deal in commerce, things of that sort. Um, People that are trying to discharge, people trying to do acquisitions of property and things of that. While on the private side, it would be more of people that are trying to drop off the map, live off the land, um, things along those lines. So they go in two totally different directions, and it would get very long real quick. But what I say the next step, on the public side would be authentication of the birth certificate, and that can be argued. And if you're not familiar with that, you want to go definitely check out the videos that I have on authentication of the birth certificate, full faith and credit, um, part one and part two. Dealing with that subject, and on the private side, will be to do a counter deed on that authenticated birth certificate, um, which I believe I have another video on that as well. But I speak on these subjects regularly in my videos. So if you're catching this video as one of the first of mine, um, I definitely have a couple years worth going back in the archives where you can go check on these particular topics. Um, Now that you've got this lesson here knocked out of the way, and you've had your time to go back and redefine some of these definitions yourself in the law dictionary, um, the financial dictionary. There's more than just Black's Law Dictionary. There's banking dictionaries. You definitely want to check that out. But even in law dictionaries, Bouvier's dictionary, and there are others. And some of these like financial definitions, you'll see them in dictionaries like Bouvier's and Black's, but it won't be the first definition, or it'll usually be the third definition. Like that's usually dealing in commerce, but you never want to skip that, because they all tie in, you know. So, you know, there are people that operate in the public and the private, um, and at this point, it's more relevant to have people that work in both, um, until we can come to a consensus as a people, um, if we're going to take the public or the private route as a whole, which would be more beneficial to our people. Whether we want to drop off the map and not deal with the Europeans, and come up with our own society anew, or totally integrate into this system, but as a complete block, and take our place amongst the affairs of men, and take over um, portions and portions, um, until things become righteous, um, which can be done. You know, either um, either route, going public or private. Um, we could get in and make change. If we had enough people going in the right direction. You know, and that was what the prophet had going on before his untimely demise. And there's been so many agents in the movement, we haven't been able to get it back going since. So I'm here to break through that fog, put up that clean glass so people can get the best understanding. Um, and that's my mission with what we got going on. Islam family, peace and love.